basically this is going to be my build video, what I've been using in the dark zone, what I use outside the dark zone. This is just a very solid build. This is definitely for solo players. I am a solo player. I don't really run in groups unless I am outside the dark zone. But if you're running this in the dark zone, this is very good solo. You have a lot of armor mitigation. You have a lot of damage, insane amount of damage. This is the critical hit damage, critical hit chance build. This build has not really been focused that way before. I'm pretty sure this is the first time you guys will probably see a type of build like this. So just bear with me, see how this build is. If you like it, go ahead and try and strive for it. It is very dope. I'm sure you guys would love it. It is a fun build and it just completely destroys shit. It is insane. So let's just get right into it. So I'm using a 4-piece AlphaBridge build with a FAMAS and LVOAC. I'm going to get into the armor stuff later. I'm going to start with my weapons first. Like I said before, this is a critical hit chance, critical hit damage build, so just remember that as I continue on with this video. So I'm using the FAMAS, 14.2k damage, 22% enemy armor damage, unforgiving, vicious, uncomplicated, destructive, deadly, predatory. Now, people ask why I use predatory. Because this is a solo build for PVE, PvP, you are going to want to use this in PVE situation because you will get your health back constantly while you're killing enemies, while you're roaming the dark zone. And you won't have to use medkits and booster shots, whatever, or overdose, whatever you use all the time. You won't have to rely on it 24/7 because you'll be getting quick kills, and this will be getting you a lot of your health back. So that is why I use that. Of course you can switch it out. I don't recommend it. Of course you can have as much damage as you want, but if you cannot sustain and survive, then it's kind of, that damage doesn't mean anything. So that is why I use that. Of course use responsive or ferocious or whatever you want to use there, but I do recommend having predatory in this build. So for the magazine, I have 98.5 magazine size, 2.5% critical hit chance, 4% critical hit damage. Large optics, I have a pro red dot sight, 17% critical hit damage, 4.5% optimal range, 2.5% critical hit chance. Now my large muzzle, I have a loud vent break of 19% critical hit damage, 3% critical hit chance, 4.5% optimal range, 42% increased threat. I'm going to get into the increased threat and optimal range real quick. Increased threat and reduced threat is obviously just how much enemies will focus on you versus if you're running in a group. If you're running in a group, then having increased threat, if you are the main one doing damage and you're not super tanky, is a bad idea. Now, reduced threat, of course, is the opposite. You won't be attacked as much because you'll be using a suppressor and your gun won't be as loud. That is basically all it is. So enemies won't focus you primarily over someone who is using no suppressor and 42% increased threat. So that is what that means. Now with the optimal range, the reason I have optimal range, I know a lot of people wonder why people have optimal range. People be like, oh, I don't want to see optimal range on a build, but that's because of the talent that I have up here. Damage is increased by 50%, accuracy and stability mods reduce this bonus, so I cannot have any of these mods on this gun because this is my primary gun. I do not want to have less damage because I want to have a more stable gun. I do have decent aim, so that just works. There's not a lot of options other than accuracy, stability, rate of fire on some stuff, and optimal range, and I just haven't got anything else that I can use other than optimal range, and that's just why I use it. So keep that in mind when you make a build. Stability and accuracy will make this build weaker in the long run. For my second weapon, I use the LVOAC. Has 22% armor damage, 16.8k damage. Same talents, of course. For the magazine, I have a high velocity magazine, 7% critical hit chance, 4% critical hit damage, 4.6% rate of fire. Large optics, I have a reflex sight, 7% critical hit chance, 2.5% stability. Like I said, I can use stability on this gun. It is it's really good because of the AlphaBridge build that you can use all the talents will work on regardless of the gun that you're using, and if you decide to have stability and accuracy on one gun, it won't affect it if you use your other gun, and I think that is really cool. 7% critical chance, 2.5% stability, 4% critical hit damage. I'm sorry if I just reread that. Large muzzle, I have a SR7 suppressor, 16% critical hit damage, 3% critical hit chance, 2.5% stability, 46% reduced threat. See, there you go. Now, if I want to be super quiet and not have enemies at me all the time, like let's say I'm running in a group in like Lexington Event Center or something, and I don't want to be attacked because I'm squishy as fuck or something like that, then of course I can just switch to this weapon and not be attracting so much damage onto myself, especially if they're the tank in the group. For my large underbarrel, I have a small grip, critical hit damage 18%, 5% reload speed, 2.5% stability. So these are both really good. I'm going to get into the stats when you have your actually no, I'll just go in armor first. So for armor, I have the Beret bulletproof vest, sorry, the Lori Barrett bulletproof vest, has 397 firearms, 1,530 stamina, 205%, sorry, 205 electronics. I get really confused with these percents and shit all the time. No, so the talent is no skill on cooldown, increase skill power by 10%. One skill on cooldown increases damage by 5%. 2 skills on cooldown increase armor by 10%. The major attribute is 1,223 armor, 9.5% exotic damage resilience, and 26% increased kill XP on your miners. Now, before I get into the rest of this stuff, if you have the time to farm this chest, this is highly recommended. This is a very, very, very solid chest to use. Yes, you do have to sacrifice a gear piece set if you're running a 4-piece. So if you're running a 4-piece and you have like AlphaBridge chest, yeah, you're gonna have to switch that off. But the reward is very, very, very good, especially if you get good rolls. It's just, it does really, really well in PvP and PVE. It's just an insane thing to run. I'm gonna get more into it. I'm gonna do a full review on why this is very, very good, but I'm gonna continue on with the rest of the stuff, so not waste all you guys' time. So for what I have in slot is 192 firearms, 262 armor, 261 stamina, and 271 armor. Of course, armor is still the best in slot right now. You need to have armor everywhere you can, and I know that sucks, but until they rework or change how armor is and how damage is calculated and mitigated, it's just having armor is just the only real way you're gonna survive in PvE and PvP right now. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. With the mask, I have an AlphaBridge mask, 451 firearms, 1,124 stamina, 205 electronics. The major attributes, I have 3.5% critical hit chance and 8% enemy armor damage. Now, obviously, I think you can roll armor in here. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't tried to roll armor into this because obviously I'm running a critical hit damage, critical hit chance build, so I do not want to run armor on this. I might change it. I don't even think you can. I'm not even sure. So if you can run armor, go ahead and run armor. You will lose that 3.5% critical hit chance, and whether or not you think that's worth it or not is entirely up to you. But it does work for me. I've never really noticed I didn't have armor on this. I don't really care. So that's all I gotta say about that. In the slot, I have 246 firearms and 276 armor. For the knee pads, AlphaBridge knee pad, of course, 205 electronics, 1,380 stamina, 205 electronics. Major attributes, I have 1,223 armor. Minors, I have 10% enemy armor damage, 32% bleed resistance, 31% disorient resistance. Bag. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to start with the major attribute first. If you're going for this build, definitely, like I said before, armor is still the best in slot. For your major attribute, you can roll armor on this, so I would definitely think about changing that, because honestly, armor is key. So if you can change it, do that. If you have another rule that's not this, then definitely try to get into armor, because that is what I'm trying to do, and that is the most effective way to run this build. Even if you can have all this, but it can still be more effective if you do put armor onto this backpack. That's all I gotta say about that. 294 firearms, 1212 stamina, 205 electronics, and of course the miner has 50% ammo capacity. Now I'm running this operator's glove, which has 1268 firearms, which is a really good roll, 205 stamina, 205 electronics. The talent, of course, it could be better. Obviously running savage gloves would be better, but because of the rolls that I have, and because I am focusing on critical hit damage and critical hit chance, then this does suffice for it. I will change if I do get rolls like these and have a savage glove, because being able to do more damage with savage is basically you do more damage to people that are out of cover, which is basically like having 10% more damage, because most people, especially in the dark zone, are out of cover, and most enemies are running around and they're not sitting in cover all the time. So this, yeah, it can be better, it will be more effective if you do get savage gloves, but because of the rules that I have, this is why I use this. Major attributes have 1279 assault rifle damage, 15% critical hit damage, and 5.5% critical hit chance. For my holster, it has 1161 firearms, 1194 stamina, 1142 electronics. For major attributes, it has 665 armor. Now I'm gonna get into what this shows for both of these weapons in the stats. Let's go to character here. Now firearms, yes, it's slow firearms, but the damage that you will see in a sec will make up for this. Pretty high stamina, 215,000 health is very good to have. You should not have under 200,000 health, because you will be very squishy and you'll die in 3 seconds flat to people with a good damage build. So I recommend having a lot of health if you can. Strive to have a lot of health and a lot of armor. That is just, it's very key. That's the new players or players that have played this a long time and just wondering how to stay more alive. It's just, you need to have health and armor. It's just very good. Obviously low electronics. I don't really care about my electronics because it's just not necessary. This is a damage build. I don't rely on my electronics that much, but I'll get into that later. 14,000 base damage on my primary weapon, 37% critical hit chance. This is insane. I'm not gonna go into this. I'm not gonna stop and go into all this as to why it's so insane, because there are other stuff I need to mention. So we'll get into that later. I have 113% critical hit damage, which is fucking insane. 75% headshot damage. As you can see in this weapon, there is 0 accuracy, 0 stability, 31 range, reload time is 2 seconds, 4% reload speed. This is 20%. I don't know why it does this all the time. It's kind of stupid. All you gotta do to see this, if that's happening to you, is just simply unequip and put your weapon back on. As you can see, it's 20% with all weapons. So 1,279 damage. You've already seen all this stuff, basically. Enemy armor damage totals up to 55%. Signature resource gain, of course, you're gonna want to try and switch this out, but it's decent to have. It's not the worst thing you can have in the world. You could have worse shit on there. You could have like protection from elites or something, and that's shitty if you don't really need it. So just keep that in mind. This can be good and it can be bad, so remember that. Now here's where we're going to talk about this. I have 50% mitigation. This could be higher. It's not bad. A lot of people don't get much higher than 53-54% from what I've seen. This can be a lot higher, and then there are people who definitely strive to get 55 and up, which I do recommend. Having 55% or more is very good. Of course, this here I do run with this, and it works very well. but this does get increased majority of the time. I'm going to show you how I do it. 21% health regen when you get the regen, and basically all the stats that I've talked about before. Increased kill XP 26%. So I'm going to show you guys how I get the armor higher. So basically, with Full Ray Bulletproof Chest, when you're playing this, if you use one skill, you'll have 5% more damage. Use the next one, they're both on cooldown. You go to your character, and while you're in combat, you'll have, where is it? You'll have 55.20% armor mitigation, which is awesome, which is insane. If you do roll armor into that backpack, you will have so much more. You will be able to nearly reach that 60%, and I think you can reach that 60% once you get it, and that is just insane. As you can see, the damage goes higher for the primary DPS, but that is just insane. I know that you do have to have both skills on cooldown in order to do this, but majority of the time when you're in combat, because this build does take damage, and it is supposed to take damage, I'm going to keep explaining why. You will have both these skills on cooldown quite a bit. You're always going to want to use these when you can, because it's just completely necessary. I'm going to go into this more later. I'm going to continue with what I was talking about. So the abilities here, I have Tactical Scanner or Pulse. Now people tend to use Concealed in the Dark Zone. Now, yes, you can do that. You can definitely use Concealed and get the Scrambler. Like, that's 100%. There's nothing wrong with that. But I prefer to just have the more damage, and that is why I get it. That's why I use Tactical Scanner. I don't really care. People are scanning me and trying to jump me. It's not that serious. And this is definitely more for PVE, I would say. So if you do really love PvP and you think hiding yourself from scanners is useful, then I would recommend doing it. But my personal preference is to use this because I do run solo. I don't really care. It's not gonna matter if I can see anyone before they can see me, really. If I see them, I see them. It's not that serious. So that is all. Now I want to tell you the numbers between when I use my pulse. I know you guys saw that I had a 30% critical hit chance base, but when I use this, as you can see here, I'll get 13% more critical hit chance, which will give me 50% critical hit chance, and that is insane. I will have 50% critical hit chance, and then hit 132% critical hit damage when you add the critical hit damage that I get here. That is fucking insane. That is insane amount of damage to do right there. Like, that is OP. Like, that's insane. Half the time you get that much damage, that's dope. So just remember that. That's why this build is really good. It's just one of the reasons why I really like this build, why I strive to make this build, because it really does melt people with all the critical hit damage you get and how frequently you get these criticals. I am going to make a video showcase some clips of how this build really does in PvE and PvE, PvE, and all I can say is when you're damaging elites, you can hit over 100,000 on elites with this, and it is crazy. You can do so much damage. It has so much capabilities, it's insane. Now I'm going to get into my second weapon here because this is also very good. I'm going to show you guys here how much critical hit chance this has. This has 46% critical hit chance. That is ridiculous. Now some people think, yeah, a lot of people who use the AlphaBridge don't tend to use their second weapon as much because they have all 6 talents on that one weapon. They think it's useless, which, you know, that's a fine way of thinking. But if you run out of ammo and you just need to do some more damage real quick, you switch to that weapon, you have 46% critical hit chance. With your pulse on, you'll have 59% critical hit chance, basically 60% critical hit chance with over 100, I think 112% critical hit damage. That is insane. That is an insane amount of damage to hit so frequently. So just keep that in mind. That stuff comes in handy. If you think that your second weapon is useless, try to make something out of it. You can get these numbers. It is insane to do. So just this could hit more than my original weapon, and it, especially with the rate of fire, because it has that rate of fire, it has its stability, it's just very, very good. Of course this has more here, I'm not going to do all that again, but it can definitely melt the shit, especially when you need it. It can be very, very good. It is a silenced gun, it just goes fucking hard, it is insane. So just keep that in mind. So that is basically what I use, guys. If you like this build, definitely use it. Oh shit, you know, let me get into one more thing here. So let me go into talents. Definitely this does help us build. Okay, what I use is on the move, kill a hostile while moving to reduce incoming damage by 30% for 10 seconds, which, yes, it is very, very good. You should not, if you do run the dark zone a lot, you should definitely have that. I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't have that. So you'll have 30% more damage when you're killing people, and this, so let's say you kill an enemy even, and then a player comes and attacks you, will still have that 30% damage, just because 30% armor mitigation basically, or reduced damage. Doesn't matter if it's an enemy or a player attacking you, just keep that in mind. This does help a lot, especially when you're trying to speedruns through missions, speedruns through anything. It's just very, very good. I use stopping power, suppress a hostile to increase headshot damage by 25%. Of course, you saw my first weapon, I have 75% headshot damage. This basically gives me 100% headshot damage to PVE, which is very good. It's super solid to have those numbers. It's very, very good. Like, yes, this doesn't really help much in PvP, and you can definitely switch this out for something else. I'm sure there's other stuff that you can switch this out to. I'm not exactly sure what exactly, but there are definitely other stuff that you can switch that out to if you don't want to use it and you just want to definitely do stuff for PvP. If you're all PvP player, you don't really need to use that all that much, but it does work in PvE. That is basically what I'm getting at. Critical save. Use a med kit during low health to increase damage resistance by 40% for 10 seconds. This is a must-have, alright? You should not be running anywhere without this, because second you use, like, when you have low health and you use a med kit, you'll have 40% less damage income for 10 seconds. Like, there's no reason to not have this. This is a must-have if you use this build, or any build really, and you want to survive, and it's just, this really helps. Make sure you have this on. Now I have adrenaline. Use a med kit when not at full health to receive an overheal. Some people don't use this and some people do. It really depends on how you play. Of course, this is a solo build, so this stuff does work for a solo player. There are other stuff you can use if you're in a team. Of course, you can use triage, like heal an ally with skill to reduce skill cooldowns by 15%, or anything else like that. There are definitely other stuff that you can use, but because you want to have sustain, damage, and survivability, you need to have stuff that makes sure that you get a lot of health back, you're not super easy to kill, and you're doing a lot of damage, and having these are just very effective. So that's all I gotta say about that. So I'm gonna go into the Unforgiving real quick. I know one of my friends asked me why I use this. Now, what makes this build key as well, especially in PvP, is Unforgiving. Missing one health segment increases your damage by 20%. Now remember that I already have 20% all weapon damage bonus. Now I lose one health segment, and then I have 30% more, 10% more damage than I did, so I'll have 30%. The fight's getting tough. I have two segments gone. I'm on my last segment. I have 25% more damage, which means I'll have 45% damage bonus, and that is truly insane. The more, basically, the way this build is working is that the more damage you take, the more damage you can do. If you are in a 1v1 situation with this build, you're most likely gonna come up on top because this really works, especially with the armor from the Leroy Barrett's talent. This just does a lot of good. The more damage you take, the more damage you will do, and it is crazy. It has a lot of sustain, a lot of survivability, and just does insane amount of damage. It is incredible. I'm going to make a video, like I said before, with some clips in there showing how this build does in the dark zone, what it's doing to enemies, how fast you can run through these missions by yourself on challenging and all that stuff for you solo players who like doing that. But this build is definitely very, very good. So just keep that in mind. Keep what I said in mind about this whole build. It is very, very good. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you like this build, if you're using a similar build, if you have anything you think I should change on what you might be using in general, what you think is good, you let me know. I'm not looking to say this is the best build in the fucking world. I don't go around doing that stuff, but this build I think is very, very good, and it will help you, especially if you're solo in the dark zone or doing anything else in general. So if you like this video, leave a like, comment what you think. I am going to start making a lot of Division videos. I have a lot of ideas ready, and I'm really making really big comeback basically. So just stay tuned. If you like my content, definitely like and subscribe. I am going to be doing videos I think every other day or so. If you want to play with me or some, add me up at CJayYYT. My gamer tag is in the description below, in case you didn't understand what I just said or anything like that. So yep, this has been CJay. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace the hell out. I am out of here. Peace out.